Hey, Miles here, milesbeckler.com. In this video, you are learning all about the brewing conflict between Facebook and Apple. Now, if you're a Facebook advertiser or if you plan to run ads on Facebook, this video is very, very pertinent for you because Apple is making some big time changes to their iOS operating system, and it's severing a little bit of the data and information we used to get into Facebook as Facebook advertisers. In this video, we're going to answer, is this really a big deal? Is it as big of a deal as a lot of bloggers are making it? What do you really need to know? And more importantly, what do you need to do about it? Okay, what are the action steps from here? And to help make sure you're getting the most valuable information, I've gone ahead and actually interviewed my personal Facebook ads guy. This is the expert that I personally turn to, and I decided to fire up Zoom and learn about this from him and do it in a way that I could share it with you. Without further ado, let's roll that video. So Sean, we've got Apple and we've got Facebook, and they're maybe bickering and maybe they're doing things to help us improve our privacy, but it sounds like things are going to go kind of non-compatible here soon. Can you brief us, me, the listener, on kind of what's actually going on right now?
Yeah, so this it's kind of been going on for a while now. This little call it a beef, if you will, between Apple and Facebook. So towards the end of 2020, Apple kind of announced these new security updates that were going to be included in their latest iOS 14. And one of these security updates is essentially a opt-in box for all apps that will let the user decide whether or not they will allow that particular app to track them outside of that app. So say, for example, you are in Facebook's environment, you will now need to explicitly give Facebook permission to track you in another app like Safari, for example. So the way it's always worked is there's probably always been a permission for it somewhere on the back end, and people nobody really knew where it was. But as most people know, as they see in advertising, it is pretty targeted. So what Facebook does is they will keep an eye on what you're doing within the app, and if you click off to a website, they will now see what you're browsing, what you're into, in some cases what you're buying, and use that data to advertise to you within Facebook's environment. So this actually changes things in the sense where the user has to opt in to allow that to happen. Facebook is afraid that most people will not allow this to happen, and as such, personalized advertising will essentially be broken from the way they've kind of described it. And they've taken an angle to basically say that it's going to hurt small business owners more than anyone else, and they are kind of trying to be on the side of small business. And Apple, on the other hand, is taking the privacy side of things. Right. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Facebook is really against this, and Apple is kind of on the side of we're doing this for our users.
Whether that's the actual truth or not, right?
Exactly.
So Apple could be saying we're doing this for this reason, but it's kind of a corporate thing. Everybody knows that our data that's getting shared rampantly right now is like the most valuable asset. That's why we don't pay for Facebook. That's why we don't pay for Instagram. Is they're like mining all of this crazy data, and it crosses apps across platforms a lot of times, and across browsers a lot of times, to where like my shopping behavior on random Shopify stores, on Amazon, on all these other platforms and third-party sites, all that data is getting tracked, and this is severing it. And it's from an operating system level on Apple, and I'm guessing it's on the iPhone as well, like the next iPhone update.
Yes, this will be rolling out at some point in the current, as an update to the current iOS system. I think they're on 14 already, and this will be like 14.3 or something to that
Perfect.
effect.
I'm not iOS compatible, so I don't use it. So I don't know where we're at on that. So it's both the desktop. So what are we talking, like, first and foremost, of the pie of Facebook users who we're targeting, let's say like English speaking countries? Any estimates on roughly how, like, are we talking 30%, 50% of users, more or less? Even if you're roughing it, I'm just kind of curious what you think.
No, I think that's actually pretty close. So what it sounds like from what I've read is mobile to desktop. Mobile is about a 50 to 60% share, and then from that you probably have about 50 or 60% that's using an iPhone. So I think it breaks down to probably close to about 30% of all of the web traffic, at least. So it's a pretty decent chunk.
Right. And then there's obviously going to be workarounds at every level. So I remember at one point, you and Dave, for those listening, he's the integration guy who runs everything at Integrate pro.com, we were playing with some like API scripts to like send back data into Facebook about our customers. I remember we were building something around the cart. Like obviously, or maybe not obviously, but my first assumption is that like we can push this data back in some form, can't we? Or are we just like in the dark?
That's so yeah, that's actually one workaround that Facebook is suggesting that most people look into. It's not the easiest thing to implement. Take some time to get everything set up, but what it does is it does provide a way for um, our servers, or if you're on the Shopify or your cart system, to essentially communicate the sales data to Facebook on the back end. So it's not normally customer completes a purchase, and on the thank you page, there's a little snippet of code that gets triggered and fired off, and that gets sent back to Facebook. But that can get blocked by a number of things. And if you're running an ad blocker, it could get blocked. This update will essentially, I don't want to say it will kill that, but it may cause some issues there. But the API conversion, or the conversion API, I should say, will handle that process in the back end. So the servers will communicate, your server will communicate with Facebook, and it'll send that information there. So it's a way of getting around this.
And just like I know ActiveCampaign has like their mid-tier level, their more expensive level, can push on demand the subscriber data as it happens back, so you can kind of build custom audiences, lookalike audiences. I'm a cheap pass, so I don't pay for that, right? We use the basic level, and we can either export our email list, you obviously know, or we've been basing it off of the pixel action up in, the custom conversion. They land on this URL, we know they took an action, the browser then kind of communicates through the but that's what's getting severed for a portion of all people. So kind of what I'm getting at for people is like, this isn't the end of the world, because there's a lot of, like marketers are like, oh, I get to make a lot of noise and capture a lot of attention, Facebook ads are dead. And it's like, well, it's maybe half to 30% of the pie. And so we're kind of like using Dave's coding skills to code something to get around. ActiveCampaign already has a solution in their ecosystem. I personally believe that Zaps and Zapier and or other third-party tools are going to come in and replace this and become very user-friendly, click and move, or the shopping carts will update themselves, and Samcart will better communicate over there. And so my prediction being not really knowing what's going on, and I'm curious, I'm saying this because I'm curious your take on it. There will be like a trough, a dip, and then someone somewhere, third-party codes, third-party tools, Zapier integrations, or the actual shopping carts are going to update. We're going to get all that data back in the right place somewhere to get back to efficiency on our attribution windows and our tracking on that way. Do you kind of think that's the path we're headed down?
Yeah, and just to be clear, these would all be ways to kind of just reinforce the data that we are collecting. So the strangest part about this all is, the purpose of this new update with iOS is to essentially prevent users from having their data tracked. But what Facebook is telling us is they will still be able to somehow track conversions from this segment of people. Now, the way they're doing that, they're not being super clear about, but they are saying that they're going to be able to take one conversion action from this group, and whatever it's going to be done kind of on a priority scale. So as they navigate through the funnel, the conversion that gets passed back to Facebook will be the last or most important conversion, which in most cases be a purchase. If they don't purchase, it could be an add to cart. If they don't add to cart, it could be a opt-in. So that's kind of the way it's going to work. So they are still somehow able to grab this data and collect it, even though these privacy restrictions are going to be in place. That part, it kind of remains to be seen how they're going to do it, but that's kind of what they're telling people that they'll be able to do. So you're not going to be completely in the dark. They are still going to be passing some of this data back.
Got it. So instead of all the data, like as granular, like we could just track every step and add to cart and step by step and getting just the massive amounts of data, they're essentially going to give us the most highest prioritized data point within our funnel, obviously using their kind of predetermined events, and it'll track the user session, how far it goes in the events, view page, opt-in, view page lead, add to cart or checkout type thing, and that'll end up coming back.
Yeah, and that's that is one of the changes that's going to affect everybody. Is they're limiting the number of events that they will actually track now. Before it was kind of, I don't want to say it was unlimited, but it was a pretty high number. Now there will be a total of 8. There's going to be 8 conversion events that can be tracked.
Got it.
You'll basically have to, they'll auto assign it or you can go and change the priority. Most people probably would make purchase the highest and then kind of go down from there.
Yep.
But that is one
Lead
limitation
gen
that's
companies would change it around.
Yeah, exactly. But that is that's going to be something they roll out for everyone. So that's not limited to iOS users. That's just across the board now. They're going just to a total of 8 conversion events.
Do you personally see or think that like Android's going to follow suit on this? Do you think this could be kind of a new step in a new direction, whether it's for privacy reasons or whether they're all trying to just have the highest stock value in the world type thing?
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think this has kind of been going on for some time now, and it's going to continue to happen. I mean, Chrome is already saying that by next year they think cookies are going to be dead. So there's going to have to be some other way around the current method of tracking this data.
Right.
iOS, I believe, back in 2017, released an update that essentially, I want to say, it killed off cookies that were older than 24 hours. So some form of this has kind of been in
evolution.
in our system. Yeah, so this is just an evolution of that, and I assume it's going to keep going further. If this works out well for Apple, don't see why Google and other companies may not adopt this, just out of pressure from the public and everyone else, just for privacy.
And I think I've been seeing, and I'm assuming the viewers have seen too, like when you click off of Facebook, it's now adding all kinds of parameters in like the FB ID or the Facebook Click ID. It's really appending like every link. Twitter's been doing this for a very long time, but you can see that they're already starting to kind of like seed other data points in other ways. So like we've got the pixel on our site, which means it can receive data, and they're just like without asking appending a bunch of data up top. So it is kind of an evolution. I think from a personal user standpoint, like I love the idea of more like privacy and more security with our data. And like even Andrew Yang went as far as saying like, we should be the owners of our data, right? That is actually our like property in some unique way. I find it very funny that Apple's trying to become a privacy first type of company, because to me, this is just a corporate greed, companies bickering at each other, but in many senses, it's the evolution. Let's get into the weeds a little bit more on this. So retargeting is one of those things, right? Like we leverage retargeting. I would say retargeting is some of our absolute best performing audiences. We're doing a lot of video retargeting on Facebook. We're doing like everything from shopping cart abandonment type retargeting and just web visit retargeting on the page. Is it going to affect both of those, either of those? How is it going to work on the retargeting side?
I think everything that's happening within Facebook right now, video views, page and post engagement, reactions, shares, things like that, those will all stay the same. So if you're using that data, people who interacted with your brand on Facebook to then retarget them with additional ads and videos, I don't think any of that's going to change. Where it does change is what happens when they click off to your site. So I know one of the things that we like to do is we'll look at people that not only landed on our site but spent a considerable amount of time on the site. So there are different ways to segment that data where you can target or you can retarget people, the top 25% of users that spent the most amount of time on your site. So things like that will probably be going away, because I think Facebook will now lose visibility of those individuals once they land on the website. So I think it will have some effect there. Ultimately, I do think the size of the custom audiences will kind of shrink a little bit, just because the data loss that's involved here. Facebook is going to lose the ability to kind of track people who landed on a specific landing page, or people who viewed multiple landing pages, that type of thing.
But the core audiences that we like have based our entire campaign, our business on, email list, customer list, right? Like you can always just go export those because we have that data. So we can always just go get it. And so like even in a worst case scenario, once a week or something like that, going and pulling all the data, re-uploading it, making some lookalike audiences off of that, a couple of manual steps, which is why we don't pay active campaign $600 a month more. Because it's like, I think we could spend 9 minutes a week. And
exactly.
All right. So what else does this affect? Like, to me, it seems I'm gonna like. so I've been advertising on Facebook for a long time. Back in the day, we could target people by how much money they made. Like the kinds of targeting we had in 2015, 2016, you remember it. Like it was a little bit crazy. And then you could even upload a custom audience and you could load it inside of the audience insights tool, and it would tell you this data about these people. Like it was, and they've backed that off. Like we don't get that level, that granular of data anymore. This seems par for the course to me. This seems normal. This seems like this doesn't seem from the kind of like noise I'm hearing in the blogosphere. I think is just hype to try to get attention, to try to get readers to their blogs. Anything drastic that I'm missing? Is there any part of this that we haven't covered that would make this more impactful?
Not really. I mean, there are some things that are going away, and it's kind of yet to be seen if it's going away only for iOS or for everybody. So things like breaking down, when you're within the ad manager and reporting breakdowns for things like age and gender and location, there's some talk that those are going to go away, but we don't know if that means they're only going away for a subset of users or if it's going away, for everybody.
Because so iOS is probably pulling the location data from the phone. They're probably pulling all that data from other places on the phone. And once that's gone, it's gone. But it's the same way that they were buying. So they used to buy data. They still do. We just don't get access to it. They're buying credit card data and credit report data on everywhere. And that's where we got the, target my segment of audience who makes over $100,000 per year. And they rolled that back because it was kind of creepy. And so this is just another step on that process. Do you think, zooming out a little bit, so you've been running paid ads, you've spent millions of dollars in paid ad spend, you've been running paid ads for 10 plus years. Is the game getting harder? Is the game getting more difficult? Are there other aspects in our world of what we're doing these days that make it easier in some areas to where these, or is it actually flat out just getting more difficult and we're getting like our hands tied more and more? Does it even matter?
I don't think it really matters in kind of the grand scheme of things, because this is just going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, it's probably going to get tougher as time goes on, and we'll evolve. I think you kind of touched on one of the key things here, which is, collecting your email, owning your data, right? I mean, the more that we can collect from the user base, the more that we actually can utilize CRMs that handle, our subscriber list or our purchase list, things like that, and then feed that data. We can always feed that data back into Facebook to create these custom audiences and lookalikes. So in that sense, I mean, it's not really changing that much. You lose a bit of visibility in some regard to what the specific actions are that people are doing on your website. But you probably just want to push a little harder to get people to opt in, or to collect an email address, do something so that you can then continue to build.
And like our strategy we've been running forever, that's just dominating right now and last year and all our numbers is meet them where they're at on Facebook, engage them where they're at on Facebook, deliver value and helpful, fun, engaging content upfront on Facebook. And then when the timing's right, straight to the funnel. So like they're in the funnel and I'm literally, as a direct response marketer, I'm saying, did they take that one step on my site? In many senses, I think a $1 million plus business can run very efficiently, knowing just those little tiny say, did they land on the page? Did they opt in? Did they purchase my OTO? Like that's easy data to send back, even within the framework of what's here. Whether we're parsing that data through some sort of a shopping cart API, but even it sounds like with the native tools built into Facebook, like if people don't make a single change, they're still gonna, in that world, they'll get enough data to be able to navigate the ship.
I think so. I mean, once Facebook kind of acknowledged that we weren't using conversion data, I think, it's now you're just, I think it's fine. You may lose a little bit of visibility here, that we haven't touched on it, but there will be some delays in when the data actually does get reported to Facebook. So it may take a day or two longer. We're kind of spoiled in seeing stuff in real time right now. We know within like 10 minutes if someone made a purchase. But yeah, I mean, the data we still have access to is very powerful, right? And for what we're doing, we're trying to meet people on Facebook. As you said, most people don't really like to leave Facebook in the first place, and Facebook doesn't really want their users leaving. So I mean, the more you can do within their network, to introduce people to your brand and build your brand and build trust, I don't think it's going to affect us at all there.
Yeah. And so for someone who's like, no, I'm pissed. Like, this is the worst thing ever. And they want to like build out solid data. Off the top of my head, so like I guess like UTM parameters, and then theoretically like building out a whole separate funnel. So like just kind of like duplicating everything, duplicate the cart, duplicate the product and the thank you page, and then like only Facebook ad traffic goes there. I mean,
no, I think that's a good, testing wise, I think that's great, because I don't think you can do that for every campaign, but if you're just doing it for kind of proof of concept, then yeah, you can totally just build out a landing page just to send those Facebook users to, and that way you get full visibility of what they do. If they opt in, they did it from Facebook. If they bought, then they probably clicked through Facebook at some point,
right.
In the beginning. So yeah, you probably will need a separate funnel to do things like that.
In that scenario, sorry for, but like, so in that scenario, if Facebook's delaying our data 24, 48 hours, I can just go look at I can go look at lead pages and see what's my conversion rate today. I can go look at same cart and look at our, what's my conversion rate. So it's like the data's still there. What's happening is this cross-platform access to everything is kind of getting severed. And then so the UTM parameters also, because we could push it theoretically to Google, which is kind of where you were getting to.
Yeah, that would be another way around, not around it, but another way to kind of maintain some visibility is if you do add these UTM parameters, you will still be able to see within Google Analytics the traffic that came from Facebook. And if they did complete a purchase, you'll see that the source is Facebook, and you can see right down to the ad and the ad campaign that it was sent from. So yeah, you still do have that.
Brilliant. All right. Any last comments? Anything we've missed at this point? And follow that up with if people want to learn, your method for running ads, where can they go to learn how to do it like you, how to do it like a pro?
So one thing just to add, this is something that Facebook's really been pushing, is to authorize your domain. So I believe that's something that's been around for quite some time, but they are, since over the last couple of weeks, they've really been pushing for everybody to kind of go in and get their domain validated. And it's a pretty simple process. You're going into your ad manager. There's a section, name escapes me right now, but there's a section under your business settings where you can verify your domain.
Yep.
It's just simple adding a snippet of code to your website. It's very similar to putting the pixel on your site.
Yep.
And that will verify your domain. So what they're saying is that will prevent any issues when they do switch over to only having 8 conversion events. So
got it.
To make sure that nothing goes wrong, they know your domain is good, and that your business and your domain are all one and the same. So that's something that everybody should do right now, just going forward.
Perfect. Yep. Easy enough, man. Get that set up inside the business manager. It's the same thing we had to do on Pinterest. You got to validate your Pinterest for your business. And there's probably some people who are running 3, 4, 5 sets of cookies on their website. I know that there's some affiliate companies that'll allow us to put our pixel on there. We don't do it, but like it is kind of a method or a hack. And they're probably wanting to combat this kind of cross because data privacy, GDPR, California's new laws coming out. Like these are ongoing, growing questions. So I think it's just another one of those things. Any other steps that people should be taking at this point?
That's the big one. And then next would kind of just be deciding, if you do have more than 8 conversion events, what are going to be the 8 that you want to stick with going forward. For most people, that's probably going to be pretty easy. But if you're tracking, multiple types of leads or types of purchases, that type of thing, it might become more of an issue. But those are kind of the two big things.
That sounds like I'm imagining an ad manager that has like 19 conversion points in it, and I'm just like, good Lord, like no, thank you. Like simplify your business anyways, and just fit it into this at max. But I mean, we can steer our ship around the globe on the oceans of the world with 3 conversion points essentially.
Yeah, and a lot of people can. And then the optional last thing to do is look into the conversion API. It is a little bit of work to get it set up. But if you can get that going, then there's not going to be really much data loss there as far as purchases go.
And I think that this is something that's going to come out as a SaaS. Somebody's going to come out with a super easy software as a service or the shopping carts, and it's going to get tied into different locations. So I think that as these shifts happen, so just out of every challenge comes an opportunity, right? And there's somebody's gonna be like, oh, cool, I can make this little doodad widget $9 a month. It moves all your data around, so your data is super clean and cross-platform on all sides. It's essentially the Zapier of personal data type scenario.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
All right, cool. So somebody wants to learn how to run ads the Sean way, the Sean and Miles way, maybe. How would they find that?
So socialadclass.com. That would be best place to go. We've got a great free training set up there, for people to kind of just learn the top 3 things that they should already be doing.
Yep.
A lot of this is going to apply to these, these new changes that are being rolled out as well. So that would.
That game plan works. That's it. The game plan works. It spits off cash flow for us, and it's gonna survive all of this, all these shenanigans.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for hopping on with us today. I do appreciate it,
you.
and let's find a reason and a way to bring you back at some point to help and keep me updated and keep everybody updated on, what's hot, what's not on Facebook ads. So thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.